Since time immemorial, the boss fight has been as intrinsic a part of video gaming as sore thumbs and your parents asserting that you'll give yourself square eyes. But things change, and just as fewer and fewer people can remember blowing on a cartridge to try and make it work, so too is the humble boss battle slowly fading from common practice. Such are the leaps in both technology and storytelling that developers no longer need to drop in an overpowered nasty to make sure that you're A, totally abreast of where you are in the narrative, and B, getting suitably familiar with all the different controls. An increasingly endangered species they may be, but that only makes the sight of them all that more exciting. And since 2010, there have been some truly brutal, truly exhilarating, and truly ingenious bosses for gamers to pit their skills against. My name is Adam Cleary, and these are the 10 best video game boss battles of the decade. First up, honourable mentions. Yeah, a decade's a long time, and there were some that really felt like they should have made the cut. So before we begin, a big shout out to the Great Shinobi Owl from Sekiro, Snowflake from Dead Rising 2, You Were Awful, the Spider from Limbo, Nope, and 2K themselves for WWE 2K20. Number 10, Cyberdemon, Doom 2016. Yes, this is the thing you saw in every promotion for Doom 2016 when it launched. I thought it looked pretty goofy, to be honest, and his bionic knee engenders sympathy from anyone who's ever done any running in their 30s, but still, he was mustard. This boss fight is pretty much everything you've been going through up until this point, but against a demon who actually takes a considerable amount of daka to finally die. Doom was already a sensational game by this point, so having something so perfectly encapsulated like this was brilliant. But more than that, it's challenging without being crushing. The boss fight moves at a steady pace, and when you take it down, you feel like a dog with 4 dicks. Sometimes simplicity really is best, and this is the boss fight that exemplifies that, even if it does look like Ron Perlman in a daft hat. Number 9, The Marker, Dead Space 2. There is still some dispute over what precisely qualifies a game as survival horror, but at the very least, players can expect to be A, trying to survive, and B, being totally horrified at least once. Dead Space 2 did not mess around when trying to fill these two criteria. Taking every element you might have expected from a game that's primarily about dead things trying to kill you in space, and then executing them so well that even the most hardened gamers will have slept with the landing light on for a few nights afterwards. Haunting their dreams more than most will have been The Marker. Attacking with wave upon wave of nightmarish creatures and, most disturbingly, some sort of twisted reawakening of our protagonist's dead love interest, The Marker exemplifies everything that's scary and relentless in a game that's become renowned for having both traits. Number 8, Otto Octavius, Spider-Man. Given Insomniac were behind this game, everybody knew Spider-Man was going to at least be pretty good. But I don't think anyone quite expected the Game of the Year contender that came out. Refreshingly original, addictive as hell to play, and topped off with one of the best final bosses in years. The Otto Octavius fight is... it's amazing, I'll just say it. Firstly, this is easily the best rendition of Otto since Alfred Molina's take on him in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. But whereas that was the story of a good man tormented by his own creation, this is the story of a man having his facade peeled back, revealing the monster that was always there. Peter's relationship with Otto is beautifully tragic, and the battle, along with it being the perfect test of how well you've learned the mechanics of the game, is the equally perfect culmination for the hours that built up to this moment. Number 7, Senator Armstrong, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. One element that crops up time and time again with great bosses is the necessity to have mastered some element of gameplay in order to beat them. Indeed, if we just put storytelling to one side for a second, the other reason you even have boss battles in the first place is to make sure the player has learned the skills required to complete the journey. There's probably no better example of this in recent years than Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and your final showdown with Senator Armstrong, given that he requires every single ounce of competency with the game's fighting techniques to so much as survive it. From the simple ability to block and dodge to finally needing incredible timing with Free Blade mode. It's a Metal Gear game, so naturally this final battle is heavy on the cinematics, but such is the ferocity of the fight that you genuinely find yourself praying for a cutscene, if only to get the feeling back into your hands. It's fun, it's challenging, it gives an explosive ending to a typically overblown game. Number 6, Grim Matchstick, Cuphead. A lot of people would probably have had King Dice in here instead, and, you know, I'm not going to argue because the guy is an absolute bitch to beat, but here's the thing. Nonce Bob Squarehead is probably the most rewarding boss to get past in this game because he's so hard to beat. Grim Matchstick, on the other hand, might not be as challenging, but he's probably got a better balance of difficulty versus enjoyment. Even when you fail to beat him, which you will time and time again, it's easier to talk yourself into trying again because it's actually really fun. The fireballs, his 3 daft heads, these little bastards, it's the sort of absurd fun that's just not quite there for King Dice, who instead has you hurling your controller at the cat. Number 5, Poseidon, God of War 3. Heading into the 3rd installment, the God of War franchise was well known for boss fights that were as visually stunning as they were technically challenging. So it was only natural that some fans were worried about the already high bar not quite being met. How foolish they must have felt at the culmination of the Poseidon battle. Taking on the god of the seas and his monolithic incarnations of watery horses, crab claws, and lightning strikes, the game constantly shifts the format of the conflict around while the player tries their best to merely hang in there. Inflicting damage in this is largely just a bonus. Eventually, with the giant avatar almost defeated, players were treated to one of the world's few genuinely exciting uses of QuickTime events in order to dismantle the huge monster. Then, just beat the living piss out of the man himself in hand-to-hand. Number 4, Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, Dark Souls. Look, right, I never got the whole Dark Souls thing much, but I'm willing to accept that's probably just me. I don't like Yorkshire puddings or crunchy peanut butter either, but I'm happy to admit they're objectively great. I'm just weird. Anyway, I'm reliably informed by my more learned colleagues here at WhatCulture that Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, is brilliant. Where other monsters get the drop on you or are necessary to make yourself stronger, Gwyn is looming over the horizon as a constant reminder that no matter how strong the enemy you're facing is now, you're nowhere near done yet. In a game where 2 or 3 good hits from some random jamoke can put you out to pasture regardless of how good your armor is, it's hard to convey just how hard Gwyn hits you. If you are not working harder than the team who've redesigned the Sonic movie, you'll be dead in seconds. And that's not even getting into the atmosphere of this fight. If you know the backstory to all of this nonsense, then you know just how sad this fight is and how much of a tragedy the character of Gwyn is. Not gonna spoil that for you here though, just maybe play it. Number 3, Deathstroke, Batman Arkham Origins. Falling a fair way short of matching either Arkham Asylum or Arkham City, Arkham Origins' major saving grace was its incredible boss battles. It's hard to pick one in particular out, but the Caped Crusaders' man-on-man scrap with Deathstroke is probably the pinnacle. Where the game thus far, and indeed most of the franchise, requires a certain frenzied grace against the legions of henchmen Batman must fight his way through, Deathstroke is a hugely satisfying battle of wits and counterpunching. The battle system in the Arkham games was already wildly heralded, but combining it with a fight that required the player to study their opponent's moves as they were simultaneously trying to defend against them was one of the highlights of the entire series. Number 2, Xehanort, Kingdom Hearts 3. 14 years of waiting, and by God, it was worth it. That's true of the entirety of Kingdom Hearts 3 in general, of course, but especially of its final boss. After working through his entire organization and making sure they stay the hell down this time around, Sora comes face to face with the big man himself, and his 3 magic clones. The fight is nothing short of brutal, with Xehanort shifting and changing his world to give him as much of an advantage as possible. And even when he throws out those tricks and fights you one-on-one, the old codger hits like a bullet train and moves about as fast. Make no mistake, you need to earn your victory here, but it's all worth it to finally put the old bastard in the dirt. Sure, his death isn't the screaming, burning hellfire we might have preferred, but that's not really what this series is about, so it's all good. And it's worth it, without question, for one of the best boss battles of the entire decade, but not the number 1. Number 1, the Xenomorph, Alien Isolation. Yes, right, I know, hear me out. Alien Isolation tore up the rulebook on a lot of different components, but nowhere was its ingenuity more profoundly felt than its approach to bosses. In short, from the moment the creature first uncoils out of that air duct, you are locked in one ever-changing boss battle. While it does stretch the limits of what can rightly be classifiable as a boss, as both a challenge of gameplay and an imposing adversary, it's utterly peerless in modern gaming. It thinks for itself, it learns your strategies, and it's relentless in its desire to make you reload your last save. Given genuine AI by the developers, the player constantly has to develop new strategies as your foe quickly learns where you like to hide and what routes you frequently take. It thinks, and your only hope is to think better. While the real battle in Alien Isolation is almost equally against the decaying space station Ripley finds herself on and the cold death of space itself, the Xenomorph will remain one of the smartest and most testing bosses for many years to come. So there you have it, those are the 10 best video game boss battles of the entire decade. Let me know what you made of it all in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. In the meantime though, thank you so much for watching. I've of course been Adam Cleary, a man who still had an emo fringe in 2010, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.